Hello everybody, my name is Katie and welcome to a brief tutorial of RPG Maker VX Ace. I think I would like to start this out by saying hi, welcome. I will wait a little while for people to show up, but sorry that the screen keeps like popping in and out. It's because I've got two monitors right now, and it helps a lot because it means that I don't have to click between like a bunch of different things on one monitor. I can just display the basic RPG Maker stuff on this one monitor as well. So if my mouse disappears, that's why it's going over into the other monitor. And that's just to keep things from, getting in the way. And I don't have Facecam today because I think that Facecam would kind of take away from just the whole tutorial part of this because, I'm showing you what the whole thing looks like, and so yeah, that probably would not be a very good idea, so I'm just gonna put that out there. Now, I'm making this tutorial because a lot of people have been asking, especially very recently on like Tumblr, they've been asking how to do things, do certain things in RPG Maker, or like the first tutorial and how to use it, things like that. So I'm here to basically, give you some idea of how to use it, give you some idea of what to do, to be able to at least how to get started, basically. And I'm gonna use a bunch of the boss. I'm gonna open up a boss file, because I'm just like assuming that you guys basically know everything that happens in the boss. And if you don't, and you're just brand new and you're interested in learning a bit about RPG Maker, welcome. I'm so glad that you've decided to join us. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got really strongly to say here. So welcome to Sarah Pistilli? I don't know. Yeah, so we've got a couple people watching. I'm gonna need to grab the link for this. So now I just need to go into YouTube, to my own channel, and grab the link to it so I can start posting it, so I can start... Why is it doing this? Come on. It's being slow. Channel. There we go. Alright, copy link address, and let's just post it in a Tumblr post here. So anyone wondering how to use... Okay, so that's started, and I will go ahead and post the link here. Sorry, I'm posting it in basically a couple of servers that I'm in, just to make things a lot easier. Okay, so I don't really know who all is here. I don't really know whether they're going to show up or whether I'm just going to be kind of talking to myself. Whatever, I want this to be something that people can tune into later, and I don't want to make them wait too long. So, so let's talk about what to do when you've started a new project. So I've actually taken the liberty of starting a new project, mainly because as soon as I opened RPG Maker, it was immediately open to a top secret project that I'm working on. And by top secret, everybody knows about it, they just don't know what's on it, and it would have had spoilers in it. So I went ahead and took the liberty of creating an entirely new project called Tutorial Project. I will not be using it for a lot of this, but I thought it would be fun to just kind of go over some basics, some very, very basics. Anyway, so the first thing you notice when you open up the RPG Maker VX Ace engine is that your character is just kind of sitting there in the middle of a pool, and then there's nothing there. If you were to start the game, I forgot to put in headphones. I'm an idiot. You would find yourself completely unable to move because you can't move in the ocean. So it's not a very exciting game. So what you want to do to make your game a little bit more exciting is, most people I've noticed, and I'm speaking from experience talking to people who have some experience in RPG Maker, how they got started, is that a very common way that people get started with RPG Maker is they create what I like to call RPG Maker Island. Now what that's called is basically creating some land. Sorry. Creating some land and just kind of letting the character walk around in that. So basically you grab a tile from here, you create it by clicking and holding, and then that will create some land so that when you open up your game again, you're not going to get, you know, stuck in the middle of the ocean. That always helps a lot because, you know, you want to be able to move around in your game, and that's a very important feature of being able to play a game, is not getting stuck in the opening screen. So we're going to open up again. It's going to prompt me to save changes. Of course I want to save the changes. Wow, that is loud. Apologies. Alright, so we're going to start a new game. And as you can see, we can now walk around. You can also press shift to run. That's just kind of built in. The camera will follow you automatically. You don't have to like program that or anything. And yeah, I mean, you can't do anything. You can't like talk to anybody or do anything, but that's just your basics in how to create levels. Now, if you want a new map, you just can right click on the tutorial project and you press new map. You can name it anything you want. Anything you want. And the width and height, RPG Maker goes on a kind of a block style, tiles, little squares that kind of just appear, as you can see. So that'll give you an idea of how wide and how tall it's supposed to be. So let's keep it as is. If you are to script it later to make it 640 by 480, you actually would have to go, the width would have to be 20 and the height would be 15, or the whole map will look really awkward. But we're not doing that right now. So here we are. So first thing we want to do here is, let's say this is an indoor scene. So you also want to right click map properties and you want to select a tile set. I will show you what a tile set is in just a moment. But let's talk about the thing here. So we are clicking interior. This is just an automatically generated one with RPG Maker. As you can see, there's just a bunch of stuff here. You can create your own tile sets. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But this is kind of just the objects that are available to you. It's a lot of objects. RPG Maker, you can do anything. You can pretty much put in any tile set you want. You just have to make the tile set, obviously. So let's say we wanted to do just an ordinary brick house, or like a, well, this is close enough, I guess. So, I'm not the best at mapping. I admit that now. Actually, no, we won't do a brick house. We'll do a nice house with walls. One way to do it is to make your wall as high as you want it. You can make it 3 bricks long. You can make it just 2 bricks long. If you want to erase anything, there's a lot of ways to do that. But one way to do is to right-click and then run your mouse over, and that should work. And then the way to undo that is you can right-click it again and move your mouse over as well. As you can see on the top here, we've got a bunch of little shortcuts as well. This is very important. We're currently in the map mode. There is also something called the event mode and the region mode. I'll go into that in a moment, but right now we're in mapping. So if you're ever mapping and you're not looking to place down any events, this is the road you want to go into. You may notice a couple of little tools here. This is just the drawing tool. It'll just go with whatever you want to do. This is the undo selection. This is very helpful for like creating like rooms. There's the rectangle tool, so it just click and drag and it creates a rectangle. That is incredibly helpful. I'm going to go ahead and erase everything using the rectangle tool. There's also an octagonal tool. As you can guess, creates octagons. Not too helpful unless you want to create an octagonal room, but you know, whatever. There's also the painting tool. Oops, I forgot to put that here. That just made the entire room look like, you know, nothing. So, also very helpful to use. And then later on, there's the shadow pen. As soon as I create a room, I will show you how to use that, because that's a very easy feature to use. Alright, so let's click on a floor tile. I've gotten the interior thing. Okay, so here are the floor tiles here. So, I'm going to go ahead and use the square tool. I'm going to create a square room. And then I'm going to give it this wall as well. No, not this one. This one's hideous. This one's not any better. Alright, we're going to give it this wall. And then we're going to give it this ceiling. Now, you don't have to map this way. This is just a suggested way of mapping. You can get very creative with it. There are some mapping tools that'll make the walls look a little bit less, you know, dumb. But, alright, so here's how to use the shadow tool. Shadow tool, if you click on something with no shadows, it'll add shadows. If you click on something with shadows, it will remove them. So say you don't want the shadows on the side of the room. It will remove the shadows. Very, very helpful tool. This is another optional thing you can do. You don't have to do that. Personally, I don't really care that much when I use these particular tools as well. So this is the walls and the floors. So say you wanted to add some objects to it. Very simple. We'll go ahead. If you click and drag, you can select more than just one thing, and it will create the same, you know, cursor size here. So you can just go ahead and, whoops, don't do it on the square tool, do it on the pencil tool, and you can just go ahead and add as many as you want. You can create an entire room full of chairs if you really want to do that. I don't recommend that. It's kind of looks tacky, but it's your game, it's your rules. And that just kind of works for everything here. You can pretty much put anything anywhere you want. It's really helpful. It's really nice. The game sometimes comes with staircases to go up or staircases to go down. This thing does tend to respawn, so you want to keep yourself vigilant about that. And I will be right back. I just discovered there's something I need to take care of very, very, very quickly, so be right back. Okay, I am back and ready to impart some more knowledge upon you. Does anybody have any questions? Is anybody confused about anything? Is anything I need to go over right now, or are you all on the same page? Because I'm going to go into eventing, and eventing is a lot more fun for me. But let me add a couple more things to this room, just to kind of give it kind of a more, you know, roomy feel to it. Okay, so it'll be kind of like, no, wait, I don't want to do that. Place a thing full of potions and blah 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 and all that stuff. Alright, so we got ourselves a nice little room. We're gonna go into eventing right now. I will go into the tile set stuff and how to edit that in a moment, but right now we just kind of want to go into eventing. So as you can see, there's a bit of a difference. You can't see the outside of the squares when you're going into specifically the tile sets, but you can do that with the events. This is very helpful to have the grid for the events because you want to be able to see where your squares are. This especially helps with move routes, which I will go over in a moment. I'll be going over a lot of stuff. But when you double click on a square, you get a new event box here. You can name the event pretty much anything. This is an event. Okay, so there are certain conditions that can be met. Basically what that means is maybe you have to do something in the game before you can trigger this event. You don't specifically have to do anything. You don't have to click on any of these buttons to do that. Self-switch is a really helpful little switch. That's basically a switch for the event. This is a little bit hard to explain, but I'll go into that. So this is more if you create a character. So if you want to like stick an actor here and you want them to move around, you can have them either fixed in one particular place, and you can even direction fix them. So if you walk up to them and talk to them, they won't turn to face you. Through basically means that you can walk directly through them without anything. And then you can give them a stepping animation. That means they'll just be walking in place. but we'll keep them at random, and they'll be moving 2 times slower. So we could go 4 times faster, that means it'll be moving very quickly across the room, but we're gonna go 2 times slower so that we'll be able to catch up to it. And the normal frequency, this actually took me a little while to figure out what it meant, but basically if you click 1, that means it'll move every like once in a while. It'll move once and then it'll stay in place for a while, and then it'll move another place as well. And then for 5, that means it will never stop moving. It'll just continue to walk in a random direction no matter what you do. So we'll keep it normal. That means it'll move, stop, but it won't be, you know, over and over and over again. Oh, I mean, it will be over and over again, but it won't be to such a insane pace that they're just moving all over the place. And it's always kind of fun to switch it to 6 and 6 there. You can have them approach the player, or you can give them a custom movement. This is confusing, I know, but it's actually a lot easier than it looks. So basically, you could set it up so that your character here will move down, move left, any of these things. These are diagonal movements, which ironically you can't do in the player. And then this is just move at random, which I guess that's just kind of the same as the random direction as well. You can have them move toward the player, move away from the player, so that if the player gets close to them, they'll automatically move as far away from the player as possible. I'm not 100% certain what they mean by 1 step forward, 1 step backwards. A bunch of these I've never used before. Jump will basically, X and Y are your coordinates. It's very similar to math. X is the horizontal and Y is the vertical. So if you were to click this here, it just means that they will jump nowhere. But if you were to click over here, that basically means it'll jump to the right, and if you put it in the negative directions, it'll jump to the left. I'm not planning on making it jump, but that's just kind of how it works. Wait, it goes by frames, so you want to be able to, so these games are 60 frames per second, so basically what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to do the math here, and you want to be able to figure out how many frames are in a certain amount of seconds. The most you can do is 600, so if you want to do more than 600, then you have to add consecutive wait times afterward, which can be very annoying, and it can take over a lot of time in the program, but I mean, it just depends, because like for most wait commands it's going to be over a second or 2 seconds, or even maybe less than a second. So there's just a whole bunch of different things you can do, and if you hover over them, they'll explain exactly what it means here. So you can change the opacity. Opacity, for some reason 255 is the full opacity, but if you were to put it to half, that means that they would be somewhat transparent. And then if you want them to be completely transparent, you can just click on transparent on. You can give them a sound effect. There's like dozens and dozens of sound effects here, such as they come with a lot of sound effects. You can add sound effects of your own. I will go over how to do that. And then if you really want to get complicated, you can actually add a script to it. I've never actually put a script in a move route before, but you can do that in the contents as well. The priority is also a very, very important thing you want to set up in terms of events. So you have below characters. What that means is characters are kind of like your actors for the scene, what you're playing as. So think about it as the player. So if it's below characters, that means the player can walk on top of it. If it's the same as characters, that means the character cannot walk on top of it, but they can walk in front of, behind, to the side of, but they can't go through them. And above characters means the character can walk under them. So it's very simple once you get the hang of it. And then trigger, the action button, which is to say, like enter, or I believe it's X as well, or no, it's Z. Sorry, yeah, enter or Z, but I generally use enter myself. So that basically means you walk up to the event and you press enter, and then that triggers what happens in the event. If you go to player touch, that means that the player has to go up to it and touch the event, and then the event will be triggered. Also, player touch is less effective for characters, but if you want them to step on a certain place and make an event happen, that is an incredible thing, and you can use, you know, hidden and invisible events as well. Very, very helpful. So then you can click on event touch. Event touch basically means that if the event is moving around and it touches you, then the event will be triggered. So it's kind of the opposite of player touch. Auto run means that it will be triggered immediately and automatically unless some kind of condition is met. That's also a lot more helpful for invisible events, and I'll show you what I mean, but like for things like cutscenes, you want to use events for those, but then you want to kind of put them out of the way and make them invisible to the player. So if you look at a lot of RPG Maker games, in the actual engine, you'll notice a lot of like events outside of the map. That's generally just some auto-run events. And then, of course, a parallel process means that it's always going on at the same time. You don't want to stick something that will slow down the game or stop the player from moving in a parallel process, because that means it'll just keep going and going and going and going. So for the idea of just somebody walking around, you want it to use the action button. And then another thing is, if it's set to same as characters, then if you put some kind of like dialogue or text box on it, it'll come up. If you set it to below characters and it is on top of an item that you can't pass through, the dialogue will not come up. And that's something else that I learned the hard way, trying to figure out what the heck I was trying to do. You can do a whole bunch of different event pages. You can go, I'm pretty sure you can go do as many event pages as you want. I'm not 100% certain if there's like there's a cap for that. I know I did one with like 20 once, and that was because it was an animation, so I was doing it frame by frame. But so you can click on a new event page, and that's just going to basically make it so that, say the character is there if like you haven't done anything, but if you were to do something in the game, the character is not there. So that means you can just pretty much set a switch for that. Switches are interesting. So what you want to do for a switch is basically, what it means is that switch is basically if something has happened. If you've done something in the game, then a switch will be triggered on. And if that switch is triggered on, then certain events happen. So you want to you can do as many as you can. Also, you can just change the maximum number of switches. It's up to 100 automatically, but you can change it to 200 if you want. And that means it'll just continue to add more switches, and there's 20 listed per page. That can be very, very helpful. So basically you can just click through, so we'll say, you can name them, always be sure to name them something important. We'll say talked to Amy. We're to name her Amy. So if you talk to Amy, nothing happens. It's a below character event, which means that you can walk on top of it. The trigger is an action button, but since nothing happens in the event, then nothing is going to happen. So, let's just say you want her to disappear as soon as you talk to her. So, what you want to do is you want to show text. That basically just means it's dialogue, or it's, it could be dialogue, it could be exposition, it could be pretty much anything like that. But the background, the dim background is basically just kind of a dim, I mean, it's what it says on the tin, it's basically a dim background. And a transparent background means that there's no background to it, it's just the text on the screen. On the position, the bottom, the top, and the middle, that's very simple to figure out. So we're going to put it on a normal window. I'm going to call it, say, hello, I'm Amy. Goodbye. Just one cute little dialogue sequence. And then you can have it where you can set the faces for that. These are the basic faces and stuff that come with the game, but you can go into the game's files and change them. That's fairly easy to do, but if you're looking into making these for yourself, you have to have like certain grids and stuff. And I'm not an artist myself, but I do have the grids just so I can move faces around. So you can pretty much choose from any of these faces. This one looks the most like her, so we're gonna put her face over here, and then that's just face set 1. And you just want to kind of give the faces different names. So, hello, I'm Amy, goodbye. And then, of course, we wanted her to disappear as soon as you talk to her. So you click on this control switch. And that means you basically flipped on the switch that says you've already talked to Amy. And so, here we go, right here. Sorry, I'm a little bit congested. And then, as soon as you've talked to Amy, the switch goes on, and she disappears. So, if you want to see what that looks like, I'm going to go ahead and save it. And then also, this is where the player spawns automatically. Let's say you want to transfer them over to another area. There's a couple ways you could do that. You could add a door, and if you right click and just do a quick event creation, you can transfer. You can place a door, a treasure chest, or an inn. I have never done a treasure chest or an inn in a game that I have put together, but I know how to use it. So basically, if you put a treasure chest here, you can put as much gold as you want in here. So you get 10 gold and, I don't know, a potion. And it just pretty much lets you have, you know, it gives you items and stuff like that. And these are automated events, so basically I'll go over what exactly happens. So it tells you the plays at sound effects, that is chest. If you press the enter button, you can take a look at the event, that this event, instead of double clicking on it, and that means just adding an event above it. So you can go ahead and press that, and that basically means it plays the chest opening sound effect. So then it's set move route. Move route is basically the event moving. And it says direction fix off, turn left, wait 3 frames, turn right, wait 3 frames. And if you look at the way the sprite set is set up, if it turns left, it opens a little bit, and then if it turns right, it opens a little bit more, and if it turns down, it's open all the way. And that's a little bit complicated, I apologize, but if it was a person, that's kind of the way they're facing. Left is on the second row, right is on the third row, and then it's to the back on the back row. And it all works that way for the same, it works that way for items as well. So if you want an item to open, it kind of works the same way. Just imagine the item is moving left or right, or is facing left or right, or something like that. So, and then of course it's a direction fix that you can't like look at it and it'll turn into a different item or something like that. And then of course it just tells you the text is a potion was found. That's just an automated text thing. You can change it any way you want. Oh, and now this is going to depend on the font that you use in your game, but this little thing here is basically, if you have a face set here, this is about how much text you can put in there without it going off the side. And if you don't have a face, that's about as much as you can put in without the text going off the side. If you have a really wide text, you're actually going to have to figure out what the spacing on that is going to look like. But right now, this is pretty much with the default text. That's basically how it works. So then you can, you got the potion here, and because I put in that I wanted to add the potion. So you just, it increases by 1. You can do a control self switch. Now, a self switch is very simple. It basically is a switch that only applies to your event. And it's really helpful to do that because if you will have a switch that applies to your event and your event only, then you're not necessarily going to want to put the switch in like your gigantic list of switches because you don't really need it. It only applies to the one event. So for that reason, you can do up to 4 self switches. I wish you could do more because that would just make things easier. But, you know, it works just fine. So if the self switch is A is on, nothing happens. You can click on the box all you want and nothing will happen, and it'll just kind of stay in this opened animation forever. Let's say you want to just transfer to this second map. So say if you step on that one space, you'll transfer to that particular map, the anything you want map. So we'll just stick him right here. The transfer spot can appear anywhere, but that's where I'll just go ahead and stick him. And the direction basically means that's the direction he's facing. So we'll have him facing right so that he's like not just kind of looking down awkwardly. And then just so that we can see, you know, what, just so we can basically, alright, I'm gonna go ahead and change it to, what? This isn't going to work? Okay. Alright, so I'm going to make it a patch of grass so that I can see what I was just doing. So now I know that when I step on that patch of grass, oh, yeah, it's a below characters and it's a player touch. So that means that you can step on it, and then when you step on it, you will automatically transfer. And when you do the right click and create your own transferring thing, it will play this sound effect. I hate that sound effect, so I'm going to delete that. But before, it would have just played that sound effect. So if you ever play an RPG Maker game that like isn't very refined and you hear that sound effect, that's just because they right-clicked and they just did a transfer point there. Me, I generally will just create the transfer point like manually. So that's just basically your transfer place. You can also do a designation with variables. I don't really do that myself, but if you want to know how that works, you can go ahead and ask. It's not something, yeah, I think that just depends more on, like, no, I've never actually done this before. That's interesting. Okay, I would actually have to look into that because I'm not 100% certain how that works. But Okay, so that's just your basic transfer player, and if you want to add, like, if you want to know where the transfer player thing is, it's on page 2 of the event commands, and it's the one at the top, and that'll pretty much tell you where you can transfer your player. So, very, very simple. We're going to go ahead and play. We're going to save changes. So let's create, let's go ahead and, there you go, potion was found, hooray! And now you can't interact with it at all, because we've already gotten the potion out of it. If you press escape, you can take a look at all the items that you have, and now it says that you have a potion that recovers 500 HP. It does not necessarily have to recover 500 HP, as you can pretty much adjust the potions or items however you want, but that's just the automated one that exists. So, go ahead and step on that square, and that transfers you to this room. You can see I can't walk on top of any of these things. I can't look at the swords on the wall or anything. Now, you can adjust whether you want to walk on top of those things or not. That's just your decision. So we're going to go ahead and talk to Amy. Since we're approaching her from her right, she will turn to the right to face you. Had I put in a direction fix, she would have just stayed still, but I did not. So it says, "Hello, I'm Amy. Goodbye." Remember that the switch has now been triggered, and she disappears. And now you can't do anything. Like, you're stepping on, you know the event is there, it just kind of looks like it's not there anymore, and that's all there is. So now we're in this room by ourselves, and there's nothing. There is nothing here. Is this confusing, or do I need to go over anything else, or do you kind of understand? I know there's only 3 people watching, but, I mean, I just want to make sure that this is making sense to you guys. Because I'm going to go into the database. So the database is where you can make a whole bunch of really fun changes to your game. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and open up the file that we used for the boss. I'm going to go ahead and open up that original boss RPG Maker VX Ace file, and that way I can just pretty much show you where in the files to place everything, and, well, no, I can show you that now. So I've got, generally, if you want to create something, if you want to stick something in your RPG Maker file, you can stick it into, and I'll show you where that is in a moment, but I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to. Okay, so now I'm here. So you can see it's Libraries, Documents, RPG Maker, VX Ace, and then Tutorial Project. That's where they all default to going. So if you wanted to play your game on your browser, for example, then that's basically the same as playtest, except that if you're playtesting it in the actual engine, there's a couple of little things you can do, such as if you press Control while you move, well, not always, but if you press Control while you move, you can go through things. Or maybe it was Shift, I don't remember. I thought it was Control. Okay, maybe I'm just completely wrong. That might actually have to do more with region coding. I may be completely off, ignore that. There's kind of configuration settings that are just automated. I generally just I just ignore those, and then if you want to open up the file, you can open up the file that way. So if you want to add some new stuff to the game, you can go into the audio section. This is background music, this is background sound, music effects, and sound effects. You can put anything you want in anywhere, but background music and background sound will repeat. Music effects will not repeat, it's just an effect with music. And sound effects will not repeat either. But for background sounds, it's stuff like rain, or, you know, like the wind blowing in the background. Generally, that's what you want to do with background sounds. They're not as loud as the music. Or you can add the music. It looks like there's nothing here, but that's because I think everything's encrypted at first. Were I to compress everything and then uncompress it all, you'd be able to see it. It's a little confusing. Data, pretty much just don't screw with this, honestly. If you really, really know what you're doing, you can, but I just recommend completely ignoring this for the most part. So just go ahead and leave that as is. The graphics, okay, so this is where things start to get fun, and you can start to get in, you can start to really personalize your game. So faces, those are the face sets that you just saw. Again, I'm gonna have to open up the boss settings, I think, because it's not gonna make a whole lot of sense unless you can see a bunch of faces in here. Parallaxes, those are also a lot of fun. I'll have to show you on, again, the boss. But then you can also, yeah. So basically you just have to add things into the graphics section itself. Movies, there's nothing in there. There's not going to be anything in there unless you actually add an OGV movie. And that's, if you add a script, you can put it in an AVI movie, but that can get kind of weird. And then system as well, very helpful to, know where your system files are. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go off and I'm going to go, this is called Current Final Build Uncompressed. I'm gonna go ahead and open that up because, assuming you guys know about the boss, as you can see, it's open to the scene from the Escapists. So you can pretty much organize your files however you want, and I'm gonna show you my organization system here, and I'm gonna close everything first, but then I'm gonna show you my organization system because it does help a whole lot. So, when you start the game, Jack just appears in this completely empty room, and then you've got a couple of invisible events. And this is where it gets a little confusing, but basically, this is something to do with the script, so you can just go ahead and ignore that for now. You can change the window skin with the script command. The -AC basically means that it's centered on the tiles on the text box. And then you can also do a name input processing for an actor, any actor, so you can actually have it set up so that you can name your characters, you can have the player name all of their characters if you want, kind of like Hearts and Heroes did. But that's the name input processing, and you can change the max number of characters. Basically, that means the maximum number of letters people can put in. Comments are basically just, well, literally comments. You can put them in to remind yourself of stuff that you're going to do later. You can put them in to tell people what something is supposed to do, but maybe you don't have a certain, like a tile set or a piece of art that you can't use it yet, or maybe you don't know how to do something, and you can just stick a comment there that will let you or somebody else know about something that's supposed to be there, or maybe a comment about something, anything that can pretty much be a reminder. It's always very helpful. We'll go into common events later, I think. And then, of course, if you want to ask if the name you just put in is correct, basically, you can just press -N and then 10, and that basically means that is the actor that is 10th on the list, that's their name. And so it'll just type out their name. And there's a bunch of stuff here, but if you were to look at my beautiful organization system, and I do recommend organizing things the way I did because it makes things easier, it basically, I kind of created a system of like folders and then semi-folders. So what I did in the beginning of the game was I created the first recording room, and that's where Jack spawns initially. So, yeah, there's a lot of comments here, but it basically means play a common event. A common event is an event that happens, well, several times, or maybe it's just an event that's lengthy and you don't want to put it into the event there. It's basically just kind of a way to call upon an event that you put somewhere else. Change menu access so you can access the menu, because we set it up so we disabled menu access at the very beginning. And then here's a switch that basically says the intro is finished, and when the intro is finished, as you can see, this is an auto-run event, which means it would just basically replay over and over and over again. So now that the switch, the intro finished, is on, the condition is this pretty much just becomes an empty event, and you can't access it or anything, but it's off the screen now, so there you go. And as you can see, you can look at all of our lovely bits of flavor text here. Like, why did I want to get that out again? I think I was going to make some toast. Very conveniently, the font that we chose to use in the boss actually was set up, it was like size-wise that it actually fit really well, and it was smaller than the automated font in the game. So actually, you could pretty much, it's called Fiery Turk, and you could pretty much set it up so that you could type right up to the end of this box, and it would stay if there was no face set, and if there was a face set, you could type right up to here, and then you'd have to change lines, and it does require you to change lines on your own, And that's a really nice feature, I think. I think it's a lot better than kind of doing it automatically, because maybe you want to space things in a certain way or something like that. As you can see, I stuck a piece of toast here. Must be here somewhere. There it is. There it is. The toast. And as you can see, these are, you know, objects and stuff that we've created specifically for the boss. And as you can see, there's a lot of different characters. Yeah, it's a little bit complicated, but, basically, yeah, that's the bread. And I don't really have any plans to do anything different with this. There will be an update to the boss, but it's not going to be anything. It's mostly just going to be patches that fixes little things. And yes, there is the gigantic Trico sprite. Yeah, half of him is here and half of him is somewhere else. That just ended up being how it got laid out in the sprite set. We actually ended up having more than one of these. You know, you got like the blood letters and things like that. And then the TARDIS also is here. And it's actually kind of set up weird, so you actually have to put up those 3 sets because there's a little line here that you can't ignore. And don't worry about on your tile set if things kind of get cut off. If you put it together on your screen the way it's supposed to go, it's not going to be cut off or anything like that. So as you can see, like, half a Trico is here, half a Trico is here. There's also a blood splatter that is half here and half here. But if you put them together on the map, it'll just come up the way it's supposed to. So we've got a transfer spot, basically. Play SE open means open the door sound effect. And then it transfers the player to the room, and we kind of added our own fade in and fade out screens. We did that mainly because while you can add a door effect, and you can add an animation of a door opening and closing, the way we did collision in the boss set it up so that it would actually screw with that. And it just basically would have been a huge hassle to just, it just would have been too much of a hassle, so we decided not to do that. And we're going to keep that up for glitch as well. So here's the kitchen. You can look at all kinds of things. This is an invisible event because he can't walk up the wall to look at the clock. So you put the clock event down here, and that way when he looks at the clock, he'll, you know, say stuff. As you saw with the actor sprites before, it was a different actor per square, but in the boss, we actually set it up so that it was different facial expressions for each character. And we have, you know, tons and tons of facial expressions. And we kind of set it up for per character. So, for example, here's Billy. This is all the faces we use for Billy in the entire game. And then this is Billy in the baby suit. This is blushing Billy. This is Billy from jail. So, like, literally all that changed was the color of his shirt. And then Billy in the police officer. And then you've got, like, blue sprite. It's all alphabetical. Now, glitch, we actually have so many that I changed it a little bit, and I put a 1 FC for Jack faces, 2 FC for Billy faces, and all that. And that would just be so that they came up at the top of the page, so that when I needed them, I could click on them immediately, instead of having to, like, scroll all the way down, because I wanted to get to, like, say, Sean faces. So, basically, you can just go through, you can take a look at all of the different... Yeah, those are all the Jack faces and stuff. And then sometimes you won't have room, like, there'll be extra faces, but, like, there'll be extra faces, but at the same time, like, you don't want to put them on their own one, face set, and so you'll put some person's faces here, another person's faces there, and it's just the extra faces that didn't fit on the specific sheet. You can actually set it up so there are 16 faces, but we didn't know that until, and then, you know, the upside down Jack faces. But again, we didn't know about that until later, so that just kind of made things a little bit easier. But at least for this case, you know, we put all the Night in the Woods faces in one setting, and those are the Julie faces we never ended up using. And like, of course, if an NPC only really has like 1 or 2 lines, then you can put a bunch of NPCs faces together, and you don't have to necessarily like do 1 face set per NPC. As you can see, we put the police for Mark and Felix, and then Sally Face and Octodad at the end, so we really took advantage of as many of our squares as possible. So that's just kind of how it works. But if you've got a character who's around a lot, then yeah. And I've been asked to go to the infamous Alphys face. Now, you can look at the Alphys. There it is. There's the infamous Alphys face. I think it only comes up like once or twice in the entire game, but it ended up being a lot of fun. And as you can see, we had some extra Papyrus faces and some extra room in the Alphys faces, so we just stuck Papyrus on with Alphys, and the rest of the Alphys faces are with Sans. So we had some, as I said, we had some extra room. So you know, you wanna make it so that, or at least as much as possible, you wanna leave little extra room just for the sake of like not having too many things to scroll down. Oh my goodness. I don't remember if we used any of these. I think these were just the Thierry Alphys or anything like that. We ended up having a lot of Undyne faces, a ton of tutorial faces. You know, we ended up for a lot of these, and then of course the merch stuff as well. We had a lot of red faces. We got Papyrus and his merch. For some reason we have 2 sets of that. I'm not sure entirely why that is the case, but yeah, you can pretty much put stuff there. So, as you can see, this is another transfer spot. You just basically step on it and you transfer somewhere else. So I don't want to go into scripts quite yet because that is where things are going to get incredibly complicated. So there are 2 different places to access the database for the game. You can click on Tools Database, or you can click here, and that will also open up the database. And the nice thing about RPG Maker is that if you're not 100% certain what something does, you can hover over it, and it'll give you a basic synopsis of what it does. Sometimes that's not enough, hence, you know, YouTube tutorials being a thing, but other times it works really well. As you can see, we have 35 different tile sets for the boss. So if you want to screw with the tile sets, I'm not entirely certain why we kept these for. I think a couple of the sets that we did required them to say, here's the apartment sets. So the wall sets, the things that you don't want to go through, are marked with little X's. You can also mark them with O's. That means that you can walk on top of them. But you don't necessarily want to make it so that you can walk up the walls. So you've got, and then these are of course floor tiles, so you want to be able to walk on top of those. Now, these X tiles means that you can't walk through them. Some of the ways we did some of the collision were not necessarily, did not necessarily require that or anything like that. I'm not sure why these are marked with stars, or why this one is marked with stars. What is going on? Yeah, a lot of stuff were marked with stars. I'm not entirely certain. Stars means that you can go underneath them. They will appear above characters. So if you remember exactly my little tutorial before, above characters means that you can walk underneath them, and below characters means that you can walk on top of them. And for same as characters, the X button just basically means that you can't walk through it. I don't know who that is, so they're online apparently. Passability, yeah, I'm not gonna go over that right away. I'm not gonna go over that. That is very parallax related, and parallaxes can be a little bit confusing. And basically I'm not gonna make another tutorial unless people really want me to go over like how to do certain things or things like that. I'm sure this is a very boring video to anybody who doesn't really know much about stuff. So there's a scene later where the entire kitchen is burned. So we like recolored a bunch of stuff to make it look like everything was like blackened. Okay, so that's tile sets in the database. Basically, there's a bunch of sets, and you know, you can update your tile set list. Now let me go ahead and take a look at that. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at that here. So I showed you these things again, but game basically means you can start the game as is. This is a gorgeous script that we used. Scripts are basically things that you can use. It's basically modding the engine. It's basically modding it so that it does things that it doesn't automatically do. A lot of scripts will provide instructions on how to use them, so you can just kind of like, say it's a script where you want to change like a certain font. It'll say like what you're supposed to put into the different boxes to create that font, and then you do that, and then the font shows up in the game. What we did for this was, it was a script called map as menu. And so what we did is we set up a map where it looked like this, and the dots were going by, and we set it so that the map was the menu screen. So that's why everything looks so pretty. And you can pretty much just start the game and play it as much as you want. The movies thing, as you can see, these are all the movies in the game. Now, graphics. So animations, these are like a bunch of animations that come with the game itself. So pretty much you can use those whenever you want. Battlebacks, like for example, this was the Billy Battleback. It basically is what came up when we were when you're fighting with Billy, and then there's the background when you're fighting with Felix. So those are just basically battle backgrounds. Battlers, oh goodness, I don't know why there's a picture of Eevee there, but yeah. Characters, that is all of your nice character sheets. So basic character stuff. If there's a $ in front of it, that means that it is not an entire character sheet, and the computer will read it as one set of characters. If there's no $, the computer will read it, or the program will read it as a set of 8 characters. So these are the dev character sets. So it'll read it as a set of 8 characters, and there is room to put entire oh goodness, where do I, let me see if I can find it, like an entire set. Okay, here's the NPC set. So these are different NPCs, and so this is as many characters as you can put onto a sheet. And I think there are a set where you can put like 16, but we're not using those because the program doesn't read it very well. But it's doable, and there's also the full Draco sprite right here. I don't remember if we use that sprite itself, or if we just put it into the tile sets. Here are the turrets. It doesn't necessarily have to be characters. It can also be tiles that you put on there. For example, doors would go under this. Like things like other, like burning, if you set it on a walking pattern, that means the flames will, you know, go on a looping animation, which is nice. Or gates. These are doors you can use. So it's all pretty self-explanatory. It's all pretty straightforward. As you can see, this was a tile set of Jack being lowered slowly, like he's all, you know, the rope is kind of short, then it's a little longer, then it's a little longer. So that helps a lot. There's a cow plant, so it's in a constant looping animation. The music box, we wanted it so that the music box would turn, but we never got that to work. Now what I may do for maybe an update of some sort is I may set it up so I can make that work, but there's, you know, something from the Five Nights at Freddy's area. Here's the sprite of Itward, you know, basically, yeah, that's where all your characters go. And then if you want to add some more faces, you can stick it into the faces itself. Lights, yeah, a lot of this stuff didn't end up getting used, but, and a lot of this stuff, if you played the glitch demo and you saw that the lights were on, we use the lights a lot more, and that's basically just, I think that's, related to, what am I looking for, what's the word I'm looking for, I think that's related to scripts and stuff. Parallaxes. So, a parallax is a picture that you put onto the screen. You can use that as the map, or you can use that in the background of a map. So, for example, say you want to use a parallax, the picture as the map. We did this mostly with the Escapists, so this is the Escapist map. We used a parallax for it, and so we set it up so that you couldn't, like, go through certain areas or anything like that. So, yeah, that's how that works. But say you want to, you want it to be set up in such a way that it's just something that's going on in the background, and then you put a tile set map on top of it. Oops. That's what we did for Wireland. So this is the scrolling background of Wireland. Just this pretty stuff. And then of course you can kind of combine stuff too. These are the mind controls thing. This is the Fresh Prince theme song that Sushi snuck in without my permission, but I find it really funny. As I recall, yes, the Hello Neighbor area was also a tile set, or was also not a tile set, it was also a parallax. Parallaxes are really nice. We even used the load screen was a parallax. It's basically just a picture that you can put in front of or beneath tile sets, depending on what you want to do with it. So for pictures, it's basically just pictures that display. You can make it so that you click on something and you can look at the picture. That's the pretty simple things. Or it's a picture, like different pictures will pop up and you have to use them, you know. Oh yeah, we originally had an act screen, but it ended up getting changed to talk. So we used a lot of pictures. So for example, like Sean was a picture for a bit, and then we just kind of stuck him on top of the background. This was a picture. You can take a look at the blueprint. If you screw up too often, you get this picture here. System, this is where I wanted to talk a bit about it because it can get a little bit confusing. But the windows on your system, so say you want to like include a speech bubble, you can edit the balloons here, and it's just a cute little animation. Bar cover, I'm gonna ignore that. Battle start, and that's just kind of like what goes over your screen when a battle starts. The game over screen, this is just the automated screen that pops up when there's a game over. These are the icons. In a full game there's a lot more icons, but these were just all the ones we used in the boss. And fun fact, these are the high dispersion keys, and these are why the keys were named so weird, like the bronze key, the axe key, because there was an axe on it, the silver key, the gold key, and then the key card. The reason they were named that way, because those were the keys. Those were what they looked like. These are the 3 high dispersion keys. We just kind of made them look like computer parts. This was the Thing of Blood. This is the record in Layers of Fear. I am not sure what that was. I'm sure I will remember if I, you know, whatever. There's the chocolate bar. This is the cup you wanted to put the molten chocolate in, and that's once you have your cup of molten chocolate. So yeah, you guys basically get a nice combination of different icons. And you can create your own, or you can just use the icons that come automatically with the game. I suppose that is the message box, a different type of message box. There's the splash screen that goes on before you play every time. We did not originally have that, but you know. So say you want to change the text or the text color. What you can do for that is you can use one of these colors, or you can change the color. Change one of these colors, and then it'll display that particular color. And this is kind of a deconstructed text box, basically. So this is not necessarily the one we used because we didn't use it so that there were lines in front of it. So we removed the lines. So window 2, I think, is what we use most of the time. Actually, no, window 2. I'm not sure why there weren't lines, actually. No, I'm very confused by that. But just ignore what I said there. This was the window 2 for mostly the Sean set there. Where else here? Tile sets. These are all of the different tile sets, and as you can see, there are different versions of the apartment tile sets because, you know, it didn't all fit together. So there's just different versions of stuff, and then there's some stuff that came with the game. And then we bought some tile sets from other people. Be careful when you do that. Make sure that, you know, you've got permission and stuff to use certain tile sets that you buy from people or that you download from people. Some people will offer them for free. So you just go through, and yeah, I'm just clicking through, but these are different tile sets that you can use. Like these are tiles we used in the FNAF section. This was the Monica Maze section, the tiles we used for that. Yeah, it's all pretty simple. It's all very simple. You know, obviously you don't use every single thing in every single tile set, although, dang, we should have used that. That is so creepy. It's like Sam just staring creepily out of a thing. We use the gallery. We use this in the gallery. There's a lot of duplicates in here. I'm gonna have to be really careful. Another thing that we used in the gallery, this was the Layers of Fear melt scene. Let's see. Oh, another thing is you can put events. You can, like, the pictures on events can be from tile sets as well. And then this is just the one title screen. And basically this got, like, put over the map that we used as the title screen. So you can actually see the copyright sarcastic pasta thing there. And then, of course, weather effects. That's just, I mean, this was a different type of weather effects, but generally what weather effects are, like, if you have it, like, the character goes outside and it'll be raining or something like that, and it'll be like this overlay that makes it look like it's raining. You don't have to put a fonts folder into your game, but if you want the fonts to run properly, and if you want to add fonts, it's very helpful. So these are all the different fonts that we used in the boss. I'm not sure if there's any that we didn't end up using. I think we may have just used everything. I thought we used Times New Roman somewhere, but we actually may have just set it up because, like, Times New Roman is a very basic font that everyone has, so we may not have added it. Again, with the data files, as you can see, we have 201 maps here, and then there's map info and stuff. This is just basically where the data is set up, so you don't really want to mess with that. And then, of course, audio, you've got lots and lots of background music, and if you were to click on any of it, it'll like play, and that's basically the music, and you can come on, move, please. There we go. It's opening media. There we go. But this is the cluster truck music, and then it's on a loop all the time. So background sound, you can have the crowd. The crowd I remember we used for, and this is like the background sound for FNAF. And then we used the Quake sound effect in Layers of Fear. I don't think we used rain, but basically these are background sound effects. The fire in the kitchen, I forgot about that. Music effects, I believe we used the Jack Raging Death for that as well. I believe this is the one we used.
No! What? No! This is gonna piss me off.
Yep, there it is. Not entirely certain why we stuck data in there. I wonder if that was script related. And then of course we added our own stuff like HTML with credits and contact information and readmes, and you can just pretty much add whatever you want there in the files. So let's take a look at actors, because we're already here. Actors are basically characters you can play as, or characters you can add into your party, which is why Papyrus, Undyne, Max, Mark, and Felix, because they were joined the party even briefly, you have to stick them in the actors section. So here's Jack as an actor. Nobody knows this was stuck in here because in some setups you can actually read like a short bio of the actor, but we actually ended up setting the menu up where you couldn't read that, so this is all just hidden information. Yeah, and then we added a YouTuber class. I'm not entirely certain whether that's, and you can also use yelling as a weapon. I just, as a joke, put that in there, but you can't see it. You can't see it at all. There's Billy. He's in his own class. He is Billy. Again, we ended up setting the menu up so that you couldn't read the different classes because they just weren't important. And that's a bit of a shame because Billy's class is literally just Billy. Jenny and Cliff are both subscribers. These are like initial levels and max levels, so if you want to have it where the character levels up, that's like the most levels you can hit, but obviously, you know, she doesn't have any weapons because there aren't any battles in here. So you get Mark, he's a YouTuber. We did end up not giving him like a description. Felix, same deal. There's Papyrus. He has his own class of skeleton. He has a nickname. Again, this is not all stuff you can look at actually, which is kind of a shame. And we gave her the heroine class, and the cat one is Mr. Midnight because very briefly you can have him follow you later in the game. So he is his own class. He is a cat. Whereas, like, Chloe, I guess, is a YouTuber. Okay, interesting. So, yeah, these are all the different ones, and then this is the player class. The player class basically means that the player, puts in their name, and you have to stick an actor there so that you can, call back the player's name. So this is why we have a blank character. With classes, yeah, we made it so that this is why Jack had 9999 HP. You can create a curve where, like, this is how much HP you get, and this is how much, like, attack you get, and all that stuff. And, oh yeah, that's why Billy doesn't take very much damage. He only has level 1 attack. These are different skills, so, as you recalled, roast the foreground out of your enemy. Evie. So this is like, remember it was like Jack used roast, it was very effective kind of thing. Yeah, that's where it came from. These are the different items. You have to make sure that you can't consume them if you don't want to eat them. We have accidentally eaten high dispersion keys before. Stuff like that. So you want to be careful not to do that. Oh, it was brown key, not bronze key. So these are all the different items you can pick up at any point in any of the game, and oh yeah, this is the painting piece, I forgot. The painting piece has the same icon, and actually, fun fact, it's the same piece. You pick up the same painting piece, and then as soon as you put it on the easel, it disappears from your inventory, and we just used the same painting piece over and over again. We didn't end up creating like painting piece 1, painting piece 2, painting piece 3, like why bother with that? It was just the same painting piece. That's just the way it was programmed. Fun fact, this is the heart that you get out of, like, the grave. It's literally just a heart, and then there, Palontras' fur. So basically, at any point in the boss, you can look at your inventory and look at all the different little icons that we put on there. Weapons. Yelling, and then that's pretty much it. We, didn't use any of the other weapons, but there's just a bunch of, as you can see, they add their own weapons. And then there's armor. We didn't use any of that. And then, of course, enemies. This was Billy. We actually set it up so that the background had the person in it instead of adding the enemy to the screen. And that's why Billy and Felix, like, there's nothing there. But you can take a look at the troops. And for some reason, Felix is popping... Will you stop that? Felix is popping up as... and then this is just kind of how the battle goes. So, yeah, it's not really very exciting. States, like death and poison and stuff, we didn't end up using those either. Animations are fun. Okay, so basically you can go in and there's like a bunch of really cool, like, animations. I believe we only used one. I think it was like called Holy One? Maybe this one? Yes, we used Holy One in Wireland. We used that one. That's the animation that plays when Jack, like, goes from one area to the next. And of course, we've already shown you tile sets. Common events. Common events are basically just events that happen over and over again, or maybe they're just really complicated and it's just annoying to place them onto the event. So, like, the different game overs had their own common events because we set it up so that it wasn't an actual game over. Like, none of the games over are game overs. They're actually just being reset to a certain place in the game after, like, dying. Or maybe not dying, but we actually just kind of programmed it ourselves so that there wasn't a game over screen. You would just get reset to where you were before. So, and then of course we would, like, undo all of the switches and stuff and everything like that. A lot of times for items will also allow you to call common events on them. So, and I just thought of that here. Like, here's the nugget consumption. Yes, you can eat the nugget. And if you eat the nugget, you get Nugget is devastated that he treated his offer of friendship with such negligence. So if you go over to the nugget item, it is consumable. And what happens is you call upon the common event of nugget consumption, and then that plays automatically. So that's one reason to do common events. We don't currently have a currency unit. We do have one in the next game. And I think everybody knows at this point that the currency unit is bytes. If you want the person, like, if you want at the very beginning of the game the character to be completely invisible, you can click on transparent on. The only thing is that can screw with your playtesting, and you want to necessarily playtest all the frickin' time. This makes it so that the title screen is the boss title screen, but we scripted it so that the so that the background is the, what do we call it? The map. And of course, here are all the music, and you can pretty much choose anything you want as the menu music, but of course, we went with the menu music that you hear in the game. Okay. And of course, game over, Jack Redding. And yes, you can actually change the pitch too.
This is gonna piss me off.
Or you can slow it down. This sounds horrifying when you do that. Oh my goodness. There's also no cursor effect. A cursor effect is basically like when you're scrolling between two different things, it'll make a sound. Select. That's the select sound effect, or the cancel sound effect. If you go ahead and cancel it, basically you can just go through and you can pretty much go through the game and look at that. As you can see, the whip sound effect. That's if you load the game, stuff like that. If you're doing battles, there's a whole bunch more terms that you can mess with, but actually we may. Interesting. Okay. Sorry, I'm just like looking at all of these different things because we didn't use everything. I believe that in some ways you can like have a boat appear. Okay, so there's no boat thing. So if we had a boat appear anywhere in the game actually would have crashed because we don't have the boat sound effect. And of course, there are different things that you can pretty much use to, pretty much. These are the different commands that you can use, and you can pretty much name them whatever you want. Things like that. So, yeah, that's not really have much else to say unless I want to like go into the complicated sort of looking for the complicated stuff like scripting. Like we used a script on the regions. Oh yeah, I never showed you what the regions were. Alright, so I'll show you on the apartment. So region, I am not 100% on exactly what regions are for, but we used 6. Region number 6 was literally just to make it so that you didn't walk on top of them. And that's mainly because it would have been really tedious to go through every single tile set and set it up manually. So we just made it so that 6 meant, on every map, 6 meant that you couldn't go through things. That requires a script. It's very easy to find. If anybody wants to find it, they can let me know. A lot of scripters are fine with you using their stuff for free, but, they want credit for it, so be sure to credit them. So, my way of setting things up was I made one blank map with the name of the area that I was compartmentalizing, I was categorizing. Then if you click like Wireland 1, Wireland 2, Wireland 3, so this was set up, I guess the tile set was set up ahead of time. I think I know why that is, because I think that we set that room up before we started using the 6 stuff. And then there are actually different versions of the apartment. We didn't just use the same. Yeah, this is the final room from the demo, the game-ending fox. So basically, yeah, what you want to do is you want this. That's my way of organizing things. You don't have to do it that way. As you can see, this is actually a parallax map. So the graphic is the cafeteria, and then the passability tiles were basically our way of setting it up so that you could step on certain tiles or not step on certain tiles. So like, yeah, this is one of the only areas where every map was a parallax. So that as well. And then the third version of the apartment, that was, if you look at the events, that was like when you could walk through, and then we set this up so that you could go underneath this. I don't know. It's all very detailed, and that's kind of the thing about making a game in RPG Maker. You really want to think of everything, and you really want to get super detailed as well as you can. I don't really have much else to say. I would love to know Any questions you guys have about how we did something, or if there's anything you want me to go over again, please let me know. I have to run out for like a minute, and then we'll be right back in, so go ahead and post your questions. Okay, I'm back and there are no questions. So I just realized that I forgot to go over how you do cutscenes. So, I could create my own cutscene, and I will, but let's show you a cutscene that already exists in the game. So, let's go to the horror area, and that's basically like all of the like different areas in the horror section, and we just kind of put it all together. And Cluster Truck, yet again, was a parallax. In fact, it was actually set up so that you have to walk across until you touch an event, and that event contains everything in the game show. Oh, I should probably go into conditional branches as well. Although probably not on this one. So basically conditional branches are things you set up where if you do something, then something happens. Like if a switch is on, then something happens. If the switch is off, then something else happens. We used a ton of them, and different... Actually, those aren't conditional branches. Those are selection. Those are choices. Okay. I'm dumb. There's actually a bunch of tutorials online about how to do stuff like that. And what nobody knows, or maybe you do, and I'm just dumb, is that Sean does appear in the scene. Very briefly. You can actually find it here. Yes, that sounds fair. When Blue turns right and says, no comments from the peanut gallery, check down here. That's where Sean appears, goes across, and I actually stuck that in as a move route. But anyway, that wasn't the one I wanted to look at. I just wanted to show it to you. So we're going to go to the pizza area, and here is the security booth. So this is a lot of stuff. These events are like, for example, if once the variable, the baby suit is on at number 1. So as soon as Billy put on the baby suit, we stuck the variable of baby suit at 1. And so Jack would be there. Okay, that's the activate FNAF chase. Okay, interesting. Different things you can look at. The baby suit is just sort of there in the room, and then when Billy puts the baby suit on, it's not there. Sorry. Okay. So this is a cutscene. This is a slightly more complicated cutscene, but this is when you meet Cliff. So basically, you have to fade out the background sound. The background sound was the FNAF sound effect. And then you play the music Cliff. So, the Cliff music. Okay. So, set move route player. That means the player has just appeared here, and you move right, and you move right. So the player is here. So you can see Jenny and Cliff, or sorry, Billy and Jenny behind behind Jack. So that's pretty much why we had him move forward. And then set move route Cliff 1. So there's more than one Cliff sprite here. There's actually 3 different Cliff sprites here. So that's why we numbered them. Alright, yeah, so this is Cliff 2, and I guess this is Cliff 3, but we didn't name it Cliff 3. I guess that's because we didn't have anything specific to do with it. So here is the Cliff 1 sound effect, and it means that he turns down, looks, and then we put the balloon icon. That basically means it put it over the event of Cliff. It gave it the exclamation, a mark, a balloon. Wait 30 frames means a brief pause, then move, turn left, and then go backward. So he turns left and he runs backward up to the wall, yells, stay back, don't kill me. Well, hey, calm down, we're not here to hurt you. I have a frying pan and I'm not afraid to show balloon icon. He exclaimed, another exclamation one. We had him move left, which means kind of step forward. And then, like, are you Jacksepticeye? And then we had him run over to Jacksepticeye. This was how the move route went. We would change the speed so that he was running, and then change the frequency so that he wouldn't, like, run choppily. We made it so that he kind of, like, ran directly to him. And then we changed it back, just in case we had to move him again, so that he would move, like, normally. And then you have that whole dialogue here. And then after, a certain point in the dialogue, the background music disappears, the background sound of FNAF reappears, and you can hear the door being pounded. So, like, that is actually an original sound from FNAF as well. We made them, like, wait 60 frames, which means waits a second to react. Then we had the player and Cliff turn and jump out of, surprise. And now Cliff is saying something's at the door, the power's only at 10%, blah blah blah. And then this is pretty much them talking Billy into getting into the baby suit, and we'll go here. So tint screen means that the screen basically went black. You can tint the screen any way you want. Like, you can tint it to dark, to sepia tones, to the sunset, to nighttime, and then to normal. I'm gonna go ahead and cancel because we already have it, but if you set it to minus 255 everywhere, it basically tints it to to black. So you transfer the player to another place in the security booth. In this case, it was where Billy appears. Change the variables so that now variables are very simple to switches, but it's like switches where there's different, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, different variants of that switch. So that you wouldn't necessarily want to put, like, different, like, 5 switches for, like, say a person is carrying 2 things. So you would have, like, a switch for a person is carrying 2 things, person is carrying 3 things. So if a person is carrying 2 things, 1 thing happens, or if a person is carrying 3 things, something else happens. You would put that as a variable. So say I wanted to switch this to the variable, so we have a bunch of variables here. Let me find a decent variable. Oh, that's complicated. I will not bother with that. Wow, that's one we never used. Okay, so sometimes it would, so if you were in the FNAF section and you died 2 times, then the variable would be set +1 and it's set to 2. Now you could go into switches and have it be like, oh yeah, we're gonna set a different switch every single time somebody dies, or you can set the variable every single time somebody dies to just automatically add 1, and then something different happens every time. So that just makes it, easier, and then we like to count how many deaths there are, and then of course, like, you can set it to Mavica death and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch the variable off because we don't need to do anything with that. And then you remove Jack and Jenny from the party. That means only Billy is left, because if we recall correctly, that Jack, Billy, and Jenny were in the party. Change the actor graphic to Billy. So actually, the player is always the same person. You're actually changing the actor graphic, so that this is what the actor looks like now. So you're basically, like, changing what the graphic looks like. And then you tint the screen back to normal, and he says, "You all sucked. Make us proud, Billy." And this isn't actually an auto-save, data manager save game. That just goes into the scripting section. You don't have to do anything special for that. And then, of course, the self-switch A is on. If the self-switch A is on, that means that it's a switch that only really applies to this one event. And when it's a cutscene, that's necessarily, that's what you want to do. You don't want to, like, create a different switch for, like, oh, Billy cutscene is over. Because then you're just going to be, like, if you have a lot of cutscenes in your game, that means you're just going to have, like, a wall of switches, literally, for the cutscenes. But since they're usually just one event, you can just set the self-switch. And so we set it up so that the FNAF death, if you died in FNAF twice, when you reappear in the FNAF section, Billy actually says, hey, I actually found a solution to that baby suit route. Looks like the knife shift guy finally outlined it in the blueprint. You can check it out on the table. I don't know if anybody actually used it, And then, of course, there's another self switch so that it does not repeat over and over and over again. So let me see if I can find, like, a save file where you can just go over that whole event. Oh, wow, I don't have any saves here. Hang on. I am going to go into this. I'm going to go ahead and take this off the screen for the sake of, yes, okay, I have a crap ton of saves here. I'm going to go ahead and copy them over to the final build uncompressed and then paste them. Skip the files. I don't think they're important. Okay. So I wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be any spoilers there by mistake. Okay, so as you can see, I've got a crap ton of save files. So we'll go with the one before baby. That means it's probably... What? Okay, so it's unable to find file. Not a big deal. I believe I have... Yeah, I have the boss here. Oh, wait a minute. I might have it in... Is it this? When was this updated? You know what? I think I know where the boss updated with fixes. I swear I have a... This is the boss is nothing. Where is just the boss folder? Here's one. Okay, there's 12 saves. I'm gonna go ahead and paste them. We'll replace the files in the destination, and then we're gonna go and play this. This one is actually encrypted. This is the boss. Let's play. Well, I guess it's not the Let's Play version. That's weird. I'm gonna go ahead. Actually, you know what? I can set it to full screen if I want. So let's take a look at the scene that I was talking about. One way you can tell is because we're here. This is the last place that you can save beforehand. It also helps to create different saves, but if you want, sometimes the scripts won't take effect until you've, I don't know, sometimes the scripts won't take effect if you've saved someplace, like sometimes, I mean, also you can't move diagonally naturally, you actually have to like, oh, you saw the tile sets here. So, as you can see, the tile sets were like all blacked out, and that's why. Like, this is where they all showed up. The lighting in this scene is pretty low because it's like, you know, burning. And then here's the shop scene. So these are just a crap ton of events with just text on them, mostly. Let me go ahead and zip through here. We set it up so that Alphys, like if you talk to her, like in this save file, we've already spoken to her, so I thought I told you to get the high dispersion key. Okay, geez, you have really short fuse. Anyway, so yeah, you've already spoken to Alphys here, so now she's screaming at you. That's another thing that would require like a self switch. Or actually, no, it wasn't a self switch, it was actually, I think, a variable that we used, because then, like, we made it so that after you've already talked to Alphys, that was its own switch. So let's go into FNAF. And I just showed you the cutscene for Cliff. Wow, this tile on the floor, like if it weren't for the fact that this is exactly what the FNAF area looked like, this would just be, I would not use this because like when you try to like zip through it, like look, oh my gosh, it looks so uncomfortable. RPG Maker is nice, it does run games really well. So here we go, we just moved to the right. Stay back, don't kill me. So there's the little text there. No, hey, calm down, we're not here to hurt you. I have a frying pan and I'm not afraid to... There's the wait command and the exclamation bubble. Are you Jacksepticeye? There's a move route to make him move down and talk to Jack. I can barely hear it. So we've got a lot of dialogue. Yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and blah 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 blah. A lot of talking. And then, of course, we set the background music to nothing, and then we change the background sound to the FNAF stuff again. So now they're chatting. I found a bunch of programming instruction protocols. We had a wait command that made you wait a second before Billy, you know, speaks. Then he waits, and he says there's no other option. I'm not dressing up as baby. You wanted to be useful. Here's your chance. Yeah, Billy, you can do it. I believe in you, Billy, even if I don't really know you. Fine, you owe me big time. So tint screen, and that creates the nothingness. And then, of course, have the screen fade back in, and he's like, "You all suck." And we've added the new face set of him inside of Baby. Make us proud, Billy. The blue bins for the building are on the table. This is the save icon. There's in the event thing, you can basically, like, honestly, it'd be easier if you were asking me, like, more specific questions. But, basically, like, the player was originally Jack, but now the player is Billy. Now, if you were to take a look at Billy, his HP is 10, IQ is 1. The IQ thing actually has to do with like a dumb joke. This is a touch command. You can also take a look at this here, and this is a picture that we just put over the screen. Yeah. If you look really carefully, you can actually see the fact that the candle is the candle is flickering there. Oh boy, if I went over how we did this puzzle, I would be going over stuff for a very long time, but let's go over and do the puzzle. Set it up for a player touch, so that, okay, this is how it works. I know how this puzzle works. And yes, I can pretty much do it without... That's a sound effect, so we just had it play once. Also, if you go off the path, there are events lining the path so that you can't do that. And we actually set it up so that the events, or the characters, will move toward the player and then stop when they get to him. So that's why, if you're looking really carefully, you can see that Bonnie is facing him. But that wall is in the way, so it just stopped. And then here we go. These are the same room, but now Jenny and Cliff are, you know, like against the wall here. So we had to chat. They chat here. It's like set up in, like, the switch is in a certain place so that, you know, oh, that's creepy. I didn't even notice that, but this blinks. That is so creepy. Okay. I didn't even notice that it blinked. That's so cool. And then a transfer spot that is automated. So basically, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go to... Why are you not working? There we go. I'm gonna go ahead and click the X button here. So yeah, if you got any more, if you don't have any more questions, I don't really have anything else to say. Oh, there was something else I was gonna look at. No, I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, the save spots. So save spots are basically open save screen. If you want to open the save screen, oh yeah, you can't actually like look at anything because it literally just says open save screen. Your Lyra Charm. Have you never seen this game before? Because I don't want to spoil anything. But this is a Jacksepticeye fan game that I worked on. And there's a FNAF section. Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. I guess you would know what that was. I thought you meant like in the game, but I just realized that it's probably my desktop you were talking about. So you can open the save screen. This one will open the menu screen. This is like the name input, processing. This is trigger a game over. Return to the title screen, which is something we did with the Sean fight. Get location info I've never used. Change formation access. Oh, yeah, makes it so that if you really wanted to, you could change, like, whether Billy was right behind Jack or whether you had him at the end of the line or whatever. But we didn't ever let the player choose that because it just was too confusing and it would have just kind of not worked very well. But if you really wanted to do that, you if you wanted to make it so the player could make that decision, you could. Change encounter. Okay, so it allows or suppresses random encounters. So if you have random encounters in your game for battles and stuff, then it will like change whether they pop up or not. Maybe you, for a while, you have them like walk through an area and run into random encounters. But then after a certain event happens, you want them to go back through that area but not have any random encounters. So you click on change encounter and you'd either disable or enable that. So enable it means like the random encounters are enabled, and then disable means they're disabled. Very simple. Change actor graphic. I've never used a vehicle, so I actually don't really know very much about it. Change window color. Basically, that just like lets you change the color of the window in the screen. I don't know, it's a little confusing, but you can change the transparency of the character, make them on or off. I believe that's for like the actual like event here. You can change the player followers. Interesting. And gather followers. I think that just means like the followers come find you or something like that. Anyway, it's interesting. It's a very interesting program. If you have any more questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. Again, I really know a lot about this program except for some of the like finer tuning script stuff, because as you can see, and I'll go ahead and open up the script editor. This is the code. So don't steal the code in the games. If you really want tips on the game, or if you want to know, because like some of the script, some of the scripts are not ones that we like created. So if you're really interested in knowing like where to find a certain script, like the diagonal script, I've sent that diagonal script to the Septiscape team, and they ended up implementing it later. So I mean, like if you use scripts in your game and they're freely available online, and somebody asks you where the heck to go find them, don't be a jerk. Tell them where you found them, because they may want to use them too. So this is all the game's code. So if you really want to go into it, and I don't screw with it, but if you really want to go into it, then you can like go in and change like the actual code for how things work in RPG Maker. I have only gone into it once or twice to change things, and I think that it was only for like how many, I believe it was just, and like this is how the save files work. Like if you really want to go in and like fix something or something like that. I wonder if this was changed, because, oh interesting, this may have been added. I think that these things with asterisk were things that were changed. This is how the game over works. So, stuff like that. The materials, this is where you stick all of your scripts. Scripts are things you can find online. Like, for example, let me find something that you guys would know something about. Okay, Zeus full screen. Basically, it is the full screen effect. The script that we put in to make it so you could give it a nice full screen effect. So, and I guess this is like something that, oh, the 8 direction. This is nice, because like if you stick on, you don't have to put a switch onto it. So if I deleted switch 99, that means that it would not go into effect. But if a switch is on, that means that the 8 direction script is enabled, which means you can move diagonally. If the script is off, you cannot move diagonally. So we actually did that in front of the Mabuka maze. We disabled the 8 direction script. And for the Sean battle, we also disabled the script here. That's why we have it attached to a script, or attached to a switch. So this is kind of where you don't want to screw with anything. It basically is just code that makes it so that you can move diagonally. It's a really nice script. I definitely recommend it if you're interested in that. The only thing about that is that you want to be careful where your events are, because you can maybe avoid a certain event because you can move diagonally where you wouldn't be able to avoid it, because you'd have to like step on the event to be able to move left or right. But it's a little confusing. It's kind of confusing unless you're like using it. But yeah, you want to just be careful with the 8 direction script to make sure that you can't bypass anything you're not supposed to bypass, not even accidentally, because you don't want your player to get confused. Like, a lot of times I've told people, like, imagine the dumbest player in the world and try to tailor the game to them. Like, try to include as much instruction to that particular very dumb player as you want. And like a lot of the like, especially since the game calls them actors, I'm like, the player character is like the world's worst actor. They will literally not do anything unless you command them, and if you give them any wrong command, they'll go well off script and they'll drive you nuts, because they have no intuition. They have no way of knowing, oh, this isn't what what this person wants. So yeah, we used a lot of script in the boss, and I think we have even more in Glitch in the System. We've got a ton of stuff. And there's just a lot of stuff. I don't necessarily want to go into anything here. But yeah. So if you want to know where any, if you want to know like where we happen to get a certain script or something like that, we're happy to tell you. We're not going to be jerks about it and like force you to like go online and like try to find the right keyword to find the script. Like if you're really curious, like don't look at the game files. Like it's kind of disrespectful unless of course you're you get permission from the person who created the game to go through their game files. If you get permission for them, especially if they're facing some kind of issue, because I did this for Subdescape, if they're facing some kind of issue that they can't figure out how to fix, and you ask like, hey, can I go into it? I think I might know how to fix it, and they say fine, that's one thing. You can definitely look into the game files if you want to do that. But, you know, this is just me kind of showing you how we did certain things like that. So, I don't really have anything else to say, unless ever anybody has any questions about how to specifically use RPG Maker. Let me know if you want to, like, DM me and ask how to do a certain thing. I'm more than happy to show you. This is mostly for the people out there who are fans of the boss who want to make a game, maybe, like, similar to the boss, or like their own game, but they want to make it an RPG Maker and they're not really sure how to use it. There's just so many different things that you can do with this program, and I don't want to, like, you know, I don't want to try to go over every single thing. There's a lot of really great tutorials out there for really specific things. There's this one really wonderful tutorial that I used. I used it for the Escapist scene, and it basically was telling you how to create a Switch puzzle. And it wasn't the exact puzzle we ended up using in the storage room, but it gave me enough information that I was able to, like, program the storage room itself and, like, use something that I learned from that video. You know, I kind of figured it out from there. But basically, what you want to do is you want to just practice. Just keep practicing, keep play testing. If you're still not sure how to do something after you've gone through it, there's a lot of support out there. You can, like, join a forum and then specifically ask people on the forum, like, how do you do this? Sometimes the answer, unfortunately, is there is no way to do it, or you can't do it unless you script it, and then sometimes there'll be a script with, like, tons and tons of errors where things just won't work. It's unfortunate, but that's just kind of how it works sometimes. Yeah, I don't really have anything else specifically to say. I just wanted to basically tell you how to do stuff, and I wanted to show you a finished game. Again, like, what you can do is you can, like, if you want to organize your game files, it really helps to, like, create maps, kind of dummy maps, and then, like, underneath those maps, like, use a subfolder and then put them underneath that. Because if you have your entire, like, every single map out here, you know, if I expand every single map, it's just gonna wind up being, you know, just so many things to scroll through. And here we are, I'm not even, like, halfway through the game, and there's already a crap ton to scroll through. Also, fun fact, this is what the maze in Escapist looks like in full. I've told people this before, but it looks really cool. So, I thought I would tell you again. So yeah, that's what the maze looks like. Oh wow, we didn't end up using any region coding. Interesting. And then of course, like, the field dome. I don't know why I called it field dome. This is clearly not a field. But then of course, yeah. So if you don't want to make it really complicated where you have to scroll through every single map that you've ever made in the entire dang game, I don't recommend, you know, I recommend keeping them into nice little folders, especially Stanley. Like, Stanley had a crap ton of maps. So, you would wind up scrolling so much. So yeah, you definitely want to be putting like subfolders, and sometimes sub-subfolders, like, you know, exit hole and then escape landing, or something like that, or the GLaDOS control room is the Potatoes control room. Like I said, you want to put in subfolders, and you want to make it so that you can, like, minimize your subfolders and then just have a nice little thing. Like, cause, like, when I'm programming, I always keep them, like, all bunched together, and then when I need to go in and edit something, I will go ahead and find that subfolder. Say if I want to edit something in, like, the FNAF area, expand that, and then find whichever I want to do, and then as soon as I'm done editing it, I can go ahead and close up all these subfolders, and it's a neat little bow. So that's how I recommend that you organize your files in there. You don't have to do that. I've never actually seen anybody do things exactly the way that I do things, and I'm not saying that necessarily a bad way, like, oh, you need to do everything exactly the way that I tell you to do things, but, you know, it just helps a lot to do things in that particular way, because it will save you time in the long run, and it will save you a lot of confusion. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say then. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for watching my probably really boring tutorial. If you have any more questions, feel free to DM me. And yeah, I look forward to helping you out some more in the future. I enjoy working with this program, and I think helping, like, teaching stuff can help, in the long run, it can help me out, kind of figure things out myself, because if you're asking, like, a question of something that I know how to do and I have to now explain it, that will help me a lot as well. It'll help me kind of be able to visualize, like, oh, okay, this is actually exactly what I'm doing. And then sometimes explaining things will help me figure something out in the long run, like, oh, wait a minute, if I do it like this, then maybe this issue I have in a game that I'm working on now could be solved if I do something that, like, kind of piggybacks off of what I just explained. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to helping you out in your future projects, or just talking to you about the program, or answer questions. Bye!